Dr. Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stared at the computer screen. The numbers didn't make sense. She'd been working in the Atacama Desert for 3 months, looking for signs of ancient human settlements. The desert was one of the driest places on Earth, perfect for preserving old artifacts. But what her ground-scanning equipment had found was impossible. "Miguel, come look at this," she called to her research partner. Dr. Miguel Santos jogged over from where he had been examining pottery fragments. His boots crunched on the dry sand. "What is it?" Miguel asked, looking over her shoulder at the laptop screen. Sarah pointed at the colorful image on her screen. "The scanner is picking up something huge underground. Look at this shape." The image showed a long oval object buried about 30 feet below the surface. It was perfectly smooth and measured over 200 feet in length. Miguel squinted at the screen. "That's strange. Natural rock formations don't look like that. Are you sure the equipment is working correctly?" "I've checked it 3 times, Sarah said. "And look at this." She clicked to another screen showing different measurements. "The metal detector is going crazy. Whatever is down there is made of metal, but it's not showing up like any metal I know." The 2 scientists looked at each other. Sarah felt her heart beating faster. In 15 years of archaeological work, she had never seen anything like this. "We need to call Dr. Hassan," Miguel said, referring to their team leader back at the university. Sarah nodded and reached for her satellite phone. The call took a few minutes to connect. When Dr. Hassan answered, she could hear the noise of traffic in the background. "Dr. Hassan, this is Sarah. We found something unusual in Sector 7. "Unusual how?" Dr. Hassan's voice crackled through the phone. Sarah looked at Miguel, then back at her screen. "Sir, I think you need to come here and see this yourself. We've found a large metallic object buried in the desert. It's not like anything in our databases." There was silence on the phone for several seconds. "How large?" "About 200 feet long, maybe 50 feet wide. It's buried deep, but our scans show it's intact." "I'll be on the next flight," Dr. Hassan said. "Don't do anything until I get there." "And Sarah?" "Yes, sir?" "Don't talk to anyone else about this yet." The phone went dead. Sarah stared at it for a moment, then looked at Miguel. He sounded worried. "Or excited," Miguel said. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. 2 days later, Dr. Hassan arrived with a team of specialists and equipment that Sarah had never seen before. There were government officials with him, men in suits who didn't look like scientists. They set up a large tent over the dig site and brought in powerful drilling equipment. "What's going on?" Sarah asked Dr. Hassan when she got a chance to speak with him alone. Dr. Hassan looked tired. "Sarah, what you found isn't from any known civilization. The preliminary scans show materials that we can't identify. The government is interested because of national security concerns." "National security?" Sarah felt confused. "It's an archaeological find." "Maybe," Dr. Hassan said. "But the metal composition is unlike anything we've seen. The shape suggests advanced engineering. We need to be careful." The drilling began the next morning. Sarah watched as the huge machine bore down through layers of sand and rock. At 25 feet, they hit something solid. The drill bit broke. "Get the plasma cutter," ordered Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a materials specialist who had arrived with Dr. Hassan. Sarah had never seen a plasma cutter used on an archaeological dig. The bright blue flame could cut through almost any known metal. As they lowered it into the hole, Sarah held her breath. The cutter made contact with the buried object. Sparks flew up from the hole, but something was wrong. The plasma beam was barely making a mark. "Impossible," Dr. Walsh muttered. "This should cut through anything." It took 6 hours of continuous cutting to make a hole large enough for a person to climb through. When they finally broke through, a strange blue light emanated from inside. The air that escaped from the hole smelled like ozone and something else Sarah couldn't identify. Dr. Hassan was the first to rappel down into the object. His voice came through the radio, filled with amazement. "My God," he said. "It's a ship. An actual spacecraft." Sarah's knees felt weak. She grabbed Miguel's arm for support. Is it from Earth?" Miguel asked into his radio. There was a long pause. "No," Dr. Hassan's voice finally came back. "Definitely not from Earth. The technology is far beyond anything humans have ever built. The walls are smooth as glass and they're glowing with some kind of internal light. There are symbols carved into the metal that I've never seen before." "How old is it?" Sarah asked. Another pause. "Based on the sediment layers, at least 10,000 years old. Maybe more. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. 10,000 years ago, humans were just learning to farm. They lived in simple villages and used stone tools. There was no way humans could have built a spacecraft. Dr. Hassan, Dr. Walsh called down, "Are there any occupants?" "I'm moving deeper into the ship," Dr. Hassan replied. "The corridor seems to go on for quite a distance. The construction is incredible. These walls are perfectly smooth and the joints are seamless. I've never seen engineering like this." Sarah listened to Dr. Hassan's voice as he explored the interior. He described rooms filled with crystalline structures that still glowed with internal light. There were panels covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. Everything was preserved perfectly, as if the ship had been buried yesterday instead of thousands of years ago. "Wait," Dr. Hassan's voice suddenly changed. "I'm seeing something new. There's a large chamber ahead. The walls are covered with images." "What kind of images?" Dr. Walsh asked. "They look like recordings, moving pictures on the walls. And they're showing Earth. I can see continents, but they're different from how they look now. This is Earth from thousands of years ago." Sarah felt dizzy. She sat down on a supply crate and tried to process what she was hearing. An alien spacecraft had been buried in the desert for 10,000 years. Inside, there were recordings of ancient Earth. "Dr. Hassan," she said into her radio, "are you saying this ship was here studying Earth?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Dr. Hassan replied. "Sarah, we're not just looking at a crashed alien ship. We're looking at an alien research vessel. They were here studying us." The radio crackled with static for a moment. When Dr. Hassan's voice came back, it was filled with wonder and something that might have been fear. "And based on what I'm seeing down here, they were very, very interested in humanity." As Sarah sat in the desert sun, listening to her mentor describe the impossible discovery below, she realized that everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe had just changed forever. They were not alone. They never had been. The question that terrified and excited her in equal measure was simple. Where were the aliens now, and why had they left their ship behind? The answers to those questions lay somewhere in the glowing corridors below, waiting to reshape humanity's understanding of itself and its future among the stars. 3 days after Dr. Hassan's first descent into the alien ship, a full research team had assembled above the dig site. Scientists from 12 countries worked together under a hastily built research facility. Sarah watched as experts in linguistics, biology, physics, and computer science took turns exploring the mysterious vessel below. The ship was larger than anyone had first imagined. Ground-penetrating radar now showed it extended nearly 300 feet underground, with multiple levels and dozens of chambers. The outer hull was made of a material that seemed to be part metal, part crystal, and part something else entirely that human science couldn't identify. "The construction techniques are beyond our current capabilities," Dr. Walsh explained to the assembled team during their morning briefing. "The hull appears to be grown rather than built. It's as if the entire ship was formed as a single, seamless structure." Sarah descended into the ship for her first time that afternoon. The plasma-cut entry hole led to a corridor that curved gently into the ship's interior. The moment her feet touched the floor, lights began to glow brighter in the walls around her. The ship seemed to sense her presence. "The lighting system is still active," Dr. Hassan's voice came through her headset. "It responds to movement and seems to anticipate where we're going to walk next." The corridor walls were smooth and warm to the touch. Sarah ran her gloved hand along the surface and felt a slight vibration, as if energy was flowing through the material itself. Strange symbols were etched into the walls at regular intervals. They seemed to shift and change when she wasn't looking directly at them. "The writing system is unlike anything in our databases," Dr. Lisa Park, the team's linguist, explained as Sarah approached the first large chamber. "The symbols appear to be three-dimensional and dynamic. They convey information through shape, color, and movement." Sarah entered what Dr. Hassan had called the central chamber. She stopped walking and stared in amazement. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed what looked like star maps. Crystalline structures grew from the floor and walls like beautiful trees made of light. Each crystal pulsed with different colors and seemed to contain swirling patterns of information. "Welcome to the ship's memory center," Dr. Hassan said, approaching from another corridor. "We think these crystals store information, but we haven't figured out how to access it yet." "Have you found any sign of the crew?" Sarah asked. Dr. Hassan shook his head. "No bodies, no personal belongings, nothing. It's as if they simply vanished. but left everything else perfectly preserved. Dr. Park gestured toward one wall where symbols were moving in complex patterns. We've made some progress with the language. The symbols seem to represent concepts rather than sounds or letters. This section appears to be describing observation protocols. Observation of what? Sarah asked. Earth, Dr. Park replied. From what we can understand, this ship was specifically designed to study planetary civilizations. They were watching us, Sarah, for a very long time. As the team explored deeper into the ship over the following days, the scope of the alien research became clear. Room after room contained what could only be described as libraries of information about Earth and its inhabitants. There were detailed recordings of ancient human settlements, studies of human behavior, and analysis of human potential that went back thousands of years. Look at this. Dr. Kim Patel, a computer specialist, called out from a chamber filled with floating holographic displays. I've managed to activate some kind of viewing system. Sarah and the others gathered around as three-dimensional images appeared in the air above them. The images showed Earth as it appeared thousands of years ago. They watched ancient humans building the first cities, developing agriculture, and creating art. The level of detail is incredible, Dr. Hassan whispered. They recorded everything. Look, you can see individual people going about their daily lives. The recordings showed humans from many different time periods and locations. Sarah watched her ancestors learning to use fire, developing language, and creating the first tools. The aliens had been observing humanity's entire development as a species. But why? Miguel asked. Why were they so interested in us? Dr. Park had been working with the symbol translations. She looked up from her tablet with excitement. I think I found something important. This section talks about selection criteria. Selection for what? Sarah asked. I'm not entirely sure yet, but the word they use translates roughly to inheritors or successors. They were looking for something specific in the species they studied. In another chamber, the team discovered something that made everyone stop and stare. The room contained what appeared to be genetic samples, perfectly preserved in crystalline containers. But these weren't alien genetic samples. They were human. They collected human DNA going back thousands of years. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the team's biologist, explained. The preservation technology is far beyond anything we have. These samples are still viable. Viable for what? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. That's what worries me, Dr. Rodriguez replied. The organization suggests they were studying human genetic development over time. They were tracking our evolution. The most disturbing discovery came a week later, when Dr. Patel managed to access what appeared to be the ship's main database. The information was overwhelming, but one fact stood out clearly. Earth was not the only planet the aliens had studied. There are records of dozens of other worlds, Dr. Patel reported to the team. Hundreds of different species, all observed and studied in the same way they studied us. Where are those species now? Dr. Hassan asked. Dr. Patel's face was grim. According to these records, extinct. All of them. Every single species they studied eventually destroyed itself or died out. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. All of them? All except us, Dr. Patel confirmed. We're the only species still alive that appears in their research files. The implications were staggering. The aliens had been searching for something among the species they studied. Every other species had failed some kind of test or criteria. Only humanity remained. There's more, Dr. Park added. I've been working on translating their research notes about humans. The aliens called us something that translates to the persistent ones or those who adapt. They were particularly interested in human creativity and problem-solving abilities. What happened to the aliens themselves? Sarah asked. Dr. Hassan pointed to a section of symbols on the wall. From what we can understand, they called themselves the Keth Mori. But there's no indication of where they went. The ship's logs end abruptly about 9,000 years ago. As Sarah stood in the alien ship, surrounded by evidence of humanity's long observation, she felt a mixture of wonder and terror. The Kethemori had been watching humanity for thousands of years, studying them, collecting their genetic material, and comparing them to dozens of other species. Every other species had failed whatever test the aliens were conducting. Only humans remained, but the aliens themselves had vanished, leaving behind only their research and their ship. The question that haunted Sarah as she climbed back to the surface that evening was simple. What had the Kethmori been preparing humanity for? And why had they disappeared before completing their work? The answer, she suspected, lay deeper in the ship's memory crystals, waiting to change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe forever. 2 weeks after the first breach into the alien ship, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the largest crystal formation they had discovered. The crystal was taller than a person and pulsed with deep blue light. Dr. Patel had finally figured out how to interface with the alien computer systems, and this crystal appeared to be the ship's main archive. "Are you ready?" Dr. Patel asked, his fingers hovering over a panel of symbols that had taken him days to understand. Sarah nodded, though her stomach felt tight with nervousness. Every discovery in the ship had raised more questions than it answered. She had the feeling that what they were about to see would change everything. Dr. Patel touched the correct sequence of symbols. The crystal's light intensified, and suddenly the entire chamber filled with holographic images and data streams. Sarah gasped as information flowed around them in 3 dimensions. "It's beautiful," Dr. Park whispered. The linguist had been working around the clock to understand the Kethmori language, and her translations had become essential to their research. The central display showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of points of light marking different star systems. Many of the lights were red, some were yellow, and only a few glowed blue or green. Each light represents a planet where the Kethmori conducted research, Dr. Patel explained, reading data from a smaller display. Red means the species went extinct. Yellow means they stagnated and stopped developing. Blue means they're still developing, and green means... He paused, checking his translation. Green means suitable for succession. Sarah counted the lights on the display. There were hundreds of red markers, dozens of yellow ones, 3 blue lights, and only 1 green marker. "Where's the green one?" she asked. Dr. Patel pointed to a familiar spiral arm of the galaxy. "That's our solar system. Earth is marked as the only suitable for succession planet in their entire database." The weight of this revelation settled over the team. Out of hundreds of worlds and species, only humanity had earned the green classification from the Kethmori. "What does succession mean?" Dr. Hassan asked. Dr. Park was already working on that translation. "Based on the context, I think it means they were looking for a species capable of taking over their role." "They were searching for inheritors." "Inheritors of what?" Sarah asked. The answer came from the archive itself. As Dr. Patel navigated through the data streams, they discovered the Kethmori's true purpose. The aliens had been what they called guardians of life, a species dedicated to finding and preserving developing civilizations throughout the galaxy. They weren't conquerors or colonizers, Dr. Rodriguez observed as she studied biological data from the archive. They were protectors. They traveled from world to world, studying species and trying to help them survive and grow. But the archive revealed a tragic pattern. Species after species had failed to meet the Kethmori's criteria for succession. Some destroyed themselves through war or environmental damage. Others became too dependent on Kethmori technology and stopped developing their own capabilities. Many simply stopped growing and changing, becoming stagnant and eventually dying out. "Look at this data about the Zephyrians," Dr. Park said, pointing to a red marker in the display. "They developed faster than light travel and explored their entire galaxy. But when they encountered a problem they couldn't solve, they gave up and retreated to their homeworld. Within 1,000 years, their entire civilization collapsed. Another species, the Christek, had achieved perfect harmony with their environment and eliminated all conflict from their society. But without challenges to overcome, they stopped innovating and slowly lost the ability to adapt to change. The Kethmori were looking for something very specific, Dr. Hassan realized. They needed a species that could continue growing and adapting no matter what challenges they faced. The archive contained detailed studies of human behavior that went back to the beginning of recorded history. The Kethmori had been fascinated by humanity's response to problems and disasters. They documented every major crisis in human history, Dr. Park reported. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, famines. But what interested them most was how humans responded to these challenges. Sarah read through the translated notes with growing amazement. The Kethmori had observed that humans never gave up. When faced with a problem, humans would try solution after solution until they found something that worked. When their environment changed, humans adapted. When they encountered new challenges, they invented new technologies. They called it persistent creativity, Dr. Park said. The ability to keep trying new approaches no matter how many times you fail. But the most remarkable discovery was the Kethmori's analysis of human diversity. Unlike other species they had studied, humans had never developed a single, unified culture. Instead, humanity had maintained thousands of different ways of thinking and living. They saw this as humanity's greatest strength, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Most species eventually converge on a single, optimal way of life. But humans kept creating new cultures, new ideas, new ways of solving problems. The Kethmori believed this diversity made humans almost impossible to wipe out completely. The archive contained predictions about humanity's future that made Sarah's heart race. The Kethmori had calculated that humans would develop space travel, solve the problems of war and poverty, and eventually spread throughout the galaxy. But most importantly, they predicted that humans would continue to grow and change no matter what challenges they encountered. They weren't just studying us, Sarah realized. They were betting on us. Dr. Patel had found files about the Kethmori themselves. The aliens had once been much like humans, a diverse, creative species that overcame every challenge through persistence and innovation. But something had gone wrong. According to this data, the Kethmori achieved technological perfection about 50,000 years ago. Dr. Patel reported. They solved all their problems, eliminated all their challenges, and created a perfect society. That sounds wonderful, Miguel said. It was wonderful, Dr. Patel agreed. And it destroyed them. Without challenges to overcome, they stopped growing. Without problems to solve, they stopped innovating. They became immortal and perfect, but they also became stagnant. The archive showed that the Kethmori had recognized what was happening to them. In desperation, they had dedicated themselves to finding another species that could avoid their fate. They became the guardians of life, searching the galaxy for a species that would never stop growing, never stop adapting, never become satisfied with perfection. They saw humanity as their salvation, Dr. Park said quietly. Not just our salvation, but the salvation of all life in the galaxy. The final section of the archive contained the Kethmori's last hope. Detailed plans for transferring their knowledge and technology to humanity. But only if humans proved they were truly ready, only if they could demonstrate that they would use Kethmori technology to continue growing rather than to achieve stagnation. There's more, Dr. Patel said, his voice filled with excitement and fear. The archive isn't just a historical record. It's a test. The Kethmori designed it to activate when a species reached a certain level of development. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. You mean this ship isn't just an abandoned research vessel? No, Dr. Patel confirmed. It's a final exam. The Kethmori left it here for us to find when we were ready. Everything we've discovered, every translation we've made, every piece of technology we've understood, it's all been planned. The implications were staggering. The ship hadn't been left behind by accident. The Kethmori had deliberately placed it where humans would eventually find it. They had been preparing humanity for this moment for thousands of years. What happens if we pass the test? Sarah asked. Dr. Patel's answer sent shivers down her spine. According to the archive, if humanity proves worthy of succession, the ship will activate its full systems and grant us access to 50,000 years of Kethmori knowledge and technology. And if we fail? Dr. Patel looked at the red and yellow lights on the galactic map. Then we join all the other species that weren't ready. The ship will shut down permanently, and humanity will have to find its own way forward. Sarah stared at the swirling data around them, realizing that humanity stood at the most important crossroads in its history. Everything their species had achieved, everything they had learned had led to this moment. The test had already begun. On the 21st day since the ship's discovery, something changed. Sarah was working late in the archive chamber when the crystals suddenly blazed with brilliant white light. The entire ship hummed with energy that she could feel in her bones. Dr. Chen, get down here immediately. Dr. Patel's voice crackled through her radio. Something's happening in the central core. Sarah ran through the curved corridors toward the deepest part of the ship. The walls around her pulsed with moving patterns of light, as if the vessel itself was waking up from a long sleep. When she reached the core chamber, she found the entire research team gathered around a new structure that hadn't been there before. A column of pure light extended from floor to ceiling in the center of the room. Within the light, a figure was taking shape, translucent, graceful, and unmistakably alien. The being that appeared was tall and slender, with large eyes that held depth of ancient wisdom. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the figure said. "I am Kethvarin, the last guardian of this vessel. I have been waiting for your species to reach this moment." Dr. Hassan stepped forward, his voice barely steady. "You're Keth Mori? But we thought your species was extinct." "Not extinct," Kethvarin replied. "Transformed. My physical form ended long ago, but my consciousness was preserved within this ship's memory core. I am the final test administrator, the last gift my people could offer to the galaxy." Sarah found her voice. "You've been watching us this whole time?" "Since the moment you first entered this vessel," Kethvarin confirmed. "We needed to observe how your species would react to our presence, how you would work together, how you would handle the knowledge we provided. Every action you have taken has been part of the evaluation." The holographic being gestured, and the chamber filled with images of the research team's activities over the past 3 weeks. Sarah watched herself and her colleagues exploring the ship, translating the archives, debating the implications of their discoveries. "Your species has performed admirably," Kethvarin continued. "You have shown curiosity without destructiveness, cooperation across cultural boundaries, and most importantly, you have maintained your drive to learn and grow even when faced with overwhelming knowledge." "But this isn't the final test, is it?" Dr. Park asked. Kethvarin's expression grew serious. "No, the final test begins now. Your species stands at a crossroads that every intelligent civilization must face. You have the opportunity to inherit the accumulated knowledge and technology of the Keth Mori. But first you must prove that you are worthy successors." The chamber around them transformed. The walls became transparent, showing views of Earth from space. Cities glowed like jewels in the darkness, connected by networks of light. But the image also showed the problems humanity faced: pollution, poverty, conflict, and division. "The test is simple in concept but challenging in execution," Kethvarin explained. "Your species must demonstrate unity of purpose while maintaining diversity of thought. You must show that you can work together to solve problems without losing the creative chaos that makes humanity unique." "What specifically do you want us to do?" Dr. Hassan asked. Kethvarin waved his hand and a new image appeared. It showed a device of crystalline technology, beautiful and complex. "This is a fabrication matrix, capable of creating any material structure from basic elements. With it, your species could eliminate hunger, disease, and want. You could build cities among the stars and terraform dead worlds into gardens." Sarah felt her breath catch. The implications were staggering. "You're offering us the technology to solve every problem on Earth?" "Yes," Kethvarin said. "But there is a condition. The technology will only activate if used by a unified humanity. Not a single world government, not a conquered planet under one ruler, but a species that chooses to work together while celebrating its differences." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. "How do we prove we're ready?" "You must return to the surface and convince your world to unite behind a common purpose: the responsible use of Keth Mori technology for the betterment of all humanity. You have 1 year. If at the end of that time your species has demonstrated true cooperation, the technology will be yours." "And if we fail?" Miguel asked. Kethvarin's image flickered slightly. "Then the ship will shut down permanently. The technology will be lost and humanity will continue its development without our assistance. Many species have failed this test. The knowledge is too tempting, the power too great for divided civilizations to handle responsibly." "What happened to the other species that failed?" Sarah asked. "Some destroyed themselves fighting over the technology. Others became so focused on acquiring it that they forgot why they wanted it in the first place. A few succeeded in taking the technology by force, but without true cooperation, they were unable to use it effectively and eventually abandoned it." The weight of responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders. The future of humanity depended on their ability to convince 8 billion people to work together for a common goal. "There is something else you must understand," Kethvarin continued. "The Keth Mori technology is not meant to replace human innovation. It is meant to give you the tools to accelerate your own development. We do not want you to become us. We want you to become the best version of yourselves." "Why us?" Dr. Park asked. "Out of all the species you studied, why do you believe humanity can succeed where others failed?" Kethavarn's image smiled, an expression that was both alien and warmly familiar. Because you have never stopped arguing with each other. Every other species we studied eventually reached consensus on how to live, how to think, how to solve problems. But humans never stopped debating, never stopped questioning, never stopped trying new approaches. That sounds like chaos, Dr. Hassan observed. It is chaos, Kethavarn agreed. Creative, productive, beautiful chaos. It is what will save you from our fate. The Kethamori achieved perfection and died from it. Humans will never achieve perfection because you will never stop trying to improve. That restlessness, that constant dissatisfaction with the status quo, is your greatest gift. The images around them changed to show human history, scientists arguing in laboratories, artists challenging conventions, revolutionaries fighting for change, inventors trying impossible ideas. Your species' greatest strength is that you never give up trying to make things better, Kethavarn said. Even when you disagree about what better means. This diversity of thought will protect you from stagnation. So we need to unite humanity, Sarah said, but without eliminating the diversity that makes us human. Exactly. You must find a way to cooperate without becoming uniform. Work together without thinking alike. This is the challenge that has defeated every other species we have tested. Dr. Patel had been quiet throughout the conversation, but now he spoke up. What if we're not ready? What if humanity isn't mature enough for this responsibility? Kethavarn's expression became gentle. Then you will continue to grow until you are ready. The universe is patient, and so are we. But remember, this opportunity may not come again. The ship's power is not infinite, and I am the last of my kind. If humanity cannot unite in the face of such possibilities, it may never be able to do so. The holographic being began to fade. You have learned much in your time here. Take that knowledge to your people. Show them what you have discovered. Prove to them and to yourselves that humanity is ready to inherit the stars. Wait, Sarah called out. How will we know if we've succeeded? Kethavarn's voice echoed in the chamber as his image disappeared. When humanity truly unites in purpose while celebrating its diversity, you will know. The ship will respond to your success. Until then, the choice is yours. The lights in the chamber dimmed, leaving the research team alone with the most important decision in human history. They had 1 year to convince their species to work together for the common good. The future of humanity among the stars depended on their success. Sarah looked at her colleagues, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. They had work to do. The news of the alien ship broke across the world like a tsunami. Within hours of Dr. Hassan's carefully prepared announcement, every television channel, website, and social media platform was flooded with images from inside the Kethamori vessel. The reaction was everything Sarah had feared it might be, and everything she had hoped it could be. Governments immediately demanded access to the ship. Religious leaders debated whether the discovery proved or disproved their beliefs. Scientists around the world dropped their current research to focus on the alien technology. Protesters gathered in major cities, some demanding that the ship be destroyed as a threat to humanity, others insisting that the technology be shared freely with everyone. This is chaos, Dr. Hassan said, watching news reports from around the world on multiple screens in their expanded research facility. No, Sarah replied, remembering Kethavarn's words. This is humanity. The first month was the hardest. World leaders flew to the dig site demanding private meetings with the research team. Military forces from several nations positioned themselves near the Atacama Desert. The United Nations called emergency sessions to discuss how the discovery should be handled. But something unexpected began to happen. As the initial shock wore off, a different kind of response emerged. Scientists started sharing their research freely across international boundaries. Engineers began collaborating on projects to understand Kethamori technology. Young people organized global online discussions about how the alien gifts should be used. Look at this, Dr. Park said, showing Sarah her tablet. There are over 10,000 scientists now working together to translate the Kethamori archives. They're sharing everything they learn regardless of which country they're from. Sarah smiled as she scrolled through the data. Research teams from universities in Japan, Brazil, Germany, and Kenya were building on each other's work. Language experts from dozens of cultures were contributing to the translation effort. The competitive secrecy that usually characterized scientific research had been replaced by unprecedented cooperation. The breakthrough came in month 3, when Dr. Kim Patel successfully activated one of the smaller Kethamori devices. It was a simple fabricator that could create basic materials from ambient energy. The first thing it produced was clean water, thousands of gallons per day, pure and safe to drink. "We're not keeping this secret," Sarah announced to the gathered government representatives who had demanded exclusive access. "The whole world needs to see what this technology can do." The water fabricator was moved to a refugee camp in East Africa. Within a week, similar devices were being tested in disaster zones, impoverished communities, and drought-stricken regions around the world. The results were immediate and dramatic. For the first time in human history, clean water was becoming available to everyone who needed it. "The governments are furious," Dr. Hassan warned. "They wanted to control the technology, study it in secret, maybe use it as leverage against other nations." "Then they don't understand the test," Sarah replied. Kethaveran was clear. "The technology only works if humanity cooperates. We can't hoard it or weaponize it. We have to share it." The water fabricators became the catalyst for something unprecedented in human history. When people saw that the alien technology could solve real problems, when they witnessed thirsty children drinking clean water for the first time in their lives, the political arguments began to seem less important. Religious leaders who had initially condemned the discovery began to speak of it as a gift that humanity had a responsibility to use wisely. Politicians who had demanded exclusive access found their constituents more interested in solving global problems than in gaining national advantages. "Something's changing," Dr. Rodriguez observed as she watched news broadcasts from around the world. "People are starting to think like a species instead of like separate countries." The change wasn't universal or immediate. There were still conflicts, still nations that tried to claim exclusive rights to the ship, still groups that opposed the entire project. But for every voice of division, 10 voices called for cooperation. Month 6 brought the first major test of humanity's resolve. A terrorist group attempted to attack the ship, believing that the alien technology was corrupting human purity. The attack failed, but it sent shockwaves around the world. The response surprised everyone. Instead of nations blaming each other or closing their borders, the international community came together to protect the ship and its research team. Countries that had been enemies for decades coordinated their security efforts. The message was clear: the ship belonged to all humanity, and all humanity would protect it. "We're actually doing it," Miguel said, watching footage of international peacekeeping forces working together around the dig site. "We're uniting without becoming uniform." The proof came in month 9. The global cooperation around the alien technology had created new institutions, new ways of working together that preserved cultural diversity while solving common problems. The International Kethamori Research Coalition included scientists from every nation on Earth, but each team maintained its own unique approach to the work. "Look at these research reports," Dr. Park said, spreading papers across their table. "The Japanese team approaches translation through pattern recognition. The Brazilian team uses linguistic anthropology. The German team applies computational analysis. They're all working on the same problem, but each brings their own cultural perspective to the solution." The results were remarkable. By combining different approaches, humanity was understanding Kethamori technology faster and more completely than any single nation could have achieved alone. But the real test came in month 11, when the ship began to respond to humanity's efforts. The fabrication matrix that Kethaveran had shown them, the device capable of solving hunger, disease, and want, began to glow with activation energy. "It's working," Dr. Patel announced, his voice filled with awe. "The ship is recognizing our cooperation. The technology is becoming available." World leaders gathered at the dig site for what everyone knew would be a historic moment. The fabrication matrix was now fully active, capable of producing any material structure from basic elements. It could build hospitals, schools, homes, and infrastructure anywhere in the world. It could end poverty and hunger permanently, but it would only work if humanity continued to cooperate. "This is our moment," Sarah addressed the assembled leaders through global broadcast. "We've proven we can work together while remaining diverse. We've shown that human creativity and cooperation can coexist. Now we have to prove we can maintain this unity while using the most powerful technology in the galaxy." The first project chosen for the fabrication matrix was symbolic, a school in a remote village that had never had access to education. The device worked perfectly, creating a beautiful building equipped with everything needed for learning. But more importantly, it was built through the cooperation of educators, engineers, and community leaders from around the world. As the year deadline approached, Sarah stood in the ship's central chamber watching Kethvaren's holographic form materialize once again. "You have succeeded beyond our greatest hopes," the ancient guardian said. "Humanity has demonstrated the rarest quality in the galaxy, the ability to unite in purpose while maintaining the diversity that drives growth and adaptation." "So we passed the test?" Dr. Hassan asked. "You have passed this test," Kethvaren replied. "But the real test continues every day. The technology we have given you is powerful enough to transform your civilization or destroy it. Your species must choose every day to use it wisely." The holographic being smiled. "But we believe you will make the right choices. You have done something no other species achieved. You have learned to disagree productively. You argue about methods while agreeing on goals. You maintain your cultural identities while working for common purposes." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now you inherit the stars," Kethvaren said. "The fabrication matrix is fully active. Our entire technological database is available to you. But remember, these are tools to help you become the best version of humanity, not to replace human innovation with Kethmori solutions." The Guardian's image began to fade for the final time. "We have watched you for 10,000 years. Now it is your turn to become the Guardians. Explore the galaxy. Find other developing species. Guide them as we have guided you. But do it in your own uniquely human way." As Kethvaren disappeared, the ship's systems fully activated. Suddenly, humanity had access to technologies that could solve every material problem on Earth and enable exploration of the entire galaxy. But more importantly, humanity had learned something about itself. They had discovered that their greatest strength wasn't any particular technology or innovation. It was their ability to work together while remaining magnificently, chaotically, creatively diverse. 6 months later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of humanity's first interstellar ship, watching Earth shrink in the distance. The vessel was built using Kethmori technology, but designed according to human engineering principles. It was crewed by scientists, explorers, and diplomats from every nation and culture on Earth. Their mission was to continue the work of the Guardians, to find other developing species and offer them the same choice the Kethmori had offered humanity. But they would do it in their own way, respecting the diversity and unique potential of every species they encountered. As the ship jumped to faster than light speed, Sarah thought about Kethvaren's final words. Humanity had become the inheritors of the galaxy, not by conquering it, but by learning to cooperate with each other while celebrating their differences. It was the most human solution possible to the challenge of inheriting the stars. Chaotic, argumentative, diverse, and absolutely beautiful in its imperfection. And it was exactly what the galaxy needed.